So I'm an astrophysicist. I had a very standard background, a very privileged background actually, I should say, coming from an all-girls grammar school. So when I was an undergraduate at Durham University, I'm afraid it took me a very long time to awaken to the issues of gender equality in science. I went in thinking, well, I made it. Why can't anybody else? Typical. I went in saying that, you know, I could see all of these senior women within the department. Everyone just needs to stop complaining, get on, do the science. Of course, it didn't take very long for me to actually realise that all of these opinions were coming from privilege and not from reality. And over the first, you know, over these 3-4 years, I started to realise that actually the women that I could see were overworked, stressed, being forced to do different committees, etc. And that I'd never actually spoken to one in 4 years because they were so busy because of this. So I started to get a little bit worried. By the time I got into my first year of my PhD, I was kind of thinking that I would be going into a much more professional environment. I'd be entering the professional academic world. So on my Bruce Banner scale here, who's the Incredible Hulk, if you haven't heard of him, then I was starting to get just a little bit more perturbed now because I would hear the coffee room chat between the supervisors even, the line managers, actually saying that, oh, this person only got this position at Oxford because her husband was offered a job and they had to get him, so they had to give her a job. Or it was always something like that. There was always just these little comments. There was also this selection effect going on where the people that I saw, and this was women and men, I would talk to them and, you know, they would just casually mention that they hadn't seen their kids in 6 months because academia was forcing them to stay for a year in London, for example, or something. And so I started to think, well, you know, maybe actually the culture here is a little bit off. Maybe it's not just the people. By the second year of my PhD, I decided that I might want to have children. Obviously, I've achieved that so far. But in the second year of my PhD, I was told that it would not be a good idea. It would not be a good idea to do it until I had a permanent academic position, which I was 22 at the time. Permanent academic positions are like gold dust when they do come along. What are you, 35? Maybe 40 even sometimes. I wasn't willing to make that gamble. So I got really angry. I decided to do it anyway. And I decided to make the decision that I would live my career how I wanted to live it, really. I would have my children. If it meant that I didn't have my career, so be it, not a career I wanted to be in. So yay. I got pregnant in 2013, something like that. And then I was just about to swear, but stuff got real. So one of the first emails I received on my maternity leave was to indicate that I'd been forced to interrupt my studies and that they would be withdrawing not only my online library access, but also all of my physical access to the libraries and all of my physical access to the entire campus. Now, maternity leave is, you know, you're meant to be relaxed. You certainly shouldn't be forced to work by your employer, but it should also be a choice. It was my choice to carry on keeping up with my field, for example. And at the same time, I was also being told that I should be writing up my thesis on maternity leave so that there wasn't a gap in my CV. So, yeah, by this time, pretty darn furious. And I'm afraid it didn't get any better. When I came back from maternity leave, I experienced some very serious sexual misconduct from a staff member, which lasted several years, to be quite frank. And then after my complaint, that lasted 21 months. There was retaliation, there was reputation damage. It was just layer upon layer. And it started to become more and more untenable for me as a woman to stay within academia. And indeed, I actually resigned. So between then and now, obviously I'm standing up here, I've not been defeated. I did a lot of different stuff. I cried a lot. I shouted. I threatened provosts of universities outside their offices. I spoke to the media, anybody who would speak. I went on TV. I went on radio. I've given up for whole months at a time, thinking, too big a problem. I'm too small a person. I've bluffed. I've tweeted, and I've sued the university when I finally came up with the feeling that unless I talked in a language that they understood, nothing would change. And we did actually, we got somewhere, me and my lawyers. I had an absolutely fantastic set of lawyers who are kick-ass set of feminists who just want to change policy, and so they took me on for free, basically. And what we did was we forced one university to completely scrap their use of non-disclosure agreements within sexual harassment cases. So normally, if you are sexually harassed within academia and you make any kind of complaint, you will be told it's completely confidential, and you will be told that you must not ever speak of it, even if there's an outcome in your favour, which there was in my case. So, you know, I had to watch my career, my reputation being torn down, and yet I was unable to say, well, you know, but look at the findings, look at the outcome. So we started small. We started with University College London. And happily, I want to balance this. Actually, they are doing some incredible work now. They're actually leading the sector in terms of this reform, and I'll come on to why I'm happy to speak about them in a positive way now after many years in a minute. So in terms of now, I describe myself more as Thor instead of the Incredible Hulk, because I learned after very many painful years that anger was not healthy. It was not an effective way of doing change. You still need your hammer for when you really need it, but actually, you know, taking a chilled out view can be very good. So in terms of the stuff that I've learned over the years, this is what I'd kind of like to pass on. I've made many mistakes, nothing to be ashamed of, but I don't want you to waste your time making the same. So the first thing I would say is to be polite. It's very hard when you're angry, but actually a lot of the change that I've managed to effect, for example, with that maternity library access issue, that was resolved incredibly quickly with one brief, polite, pointed email to the right people. You know, I sent an email to the head of department, CCing in the head of diversity, saying, this is not okay, for these reasons, this is what I would like you to do by this date. Kind regards, Emma Chapman. And within about 2 weeks, that entire policy was changed for the whole university, for every person that then went on parental leave. It was a very simple change to do. So the first thing to do is just don't get your guns out straight away. Go in polite, see where you get with that. You can always escalate. Another point. The second lesson I learned was to separate the policies from the people. So again, with that kind of maternity policy, but also with the discriminatory harassment complaint policies, it's very easy to get angry again because you think, well, why is this HR person telling me to keep quiet? Why do they not understand how much pain I'm in, how much my career is getting destroyed? But at the end of the day, they are doing a job. And you will get much further if you at least start your work trying to work with them. So policies, for example, there's 2 points here really. The first point is to not assume that the policies are the ones that are right and that the people are the ones that are wrong. Because policies are written by biased human beings with their own set of discriminatory views. Just because they are written on a website in black and white does not mean that they are not discriminatory. Now, the people that follow them actually might be incredibly good people desperately trying to do their job, but they physically can't because of the policy. So try and work with them, convince them any change that you want to make will actually make their life easier too, and things will get done much quicker. Obviously, this doesn't always work, but I like to scale things up a little bit. Start small. That's something I've learned. So going into this, you know, when I decided I wanted to really turn my experience into kind of a change, ideally what I'd like to do is wipe out sexual harassment in academia, full stop. I'm not going to do that anytime soon. So, you know, we start small. So, for example, with the group I'm in, the 1752 group, we've had a lot of success because we have started small. We've gone in, for example, at the Institute of Physics. And we've said, your gender accreditation scheme, Juno, it could really do with something on sexual harassment. Didn't mention sexual harassment, actually, until October last year, explicitly. And they were very accommodating about that. Now we've achieved that, we can move up to Athena Swan, for example. You go for the little fish first, and they very gently shame the bigger fish, basically. Get something done within your group, within your department, and then go up to the faculty, then go up to the provost, then go up to the sector. And with the 1752 group, like I said, we've done that quite effectively. We've made changes within our own institutions, then our learned societies, and now we're at the point where we're with Universities UK sitting down, making them draft nationwide policies. Set a precedent, use a precedent, because institutions are kind of terrified, actually, of being the change first, just in case something goes wrong, because they will be liable. So if you get a small precedent set and nothing goes wrong, which it never does, to be honest, not like the institutions think it will, then they're a lot calmer. They're a lot happier about making that change a bit larger. Find allies, definitely, which you've all done today. So I think we're happy there. Find them anywhere you can. I found the 1752 group on Twitter because I just felt like I was the only person that thought that this was a problem. Everybody else was quiet. Obviously, they were quiet because they'd signed NDAs. But when you find your allies, it's extremely helpful. It means that you can tag in and you can tag out. Any kind of reform. I don't know if this is true, but for me, my campaigning comes from somewhere very personal. It comes from somewhere that, something was done to me, and so I feel like I want to stop that being done to other people. That means that talking about it can sometimes have a real effect on my health. And actually having allies that understand and that can actually reconfirm your worldview, that it is worth doing this work and that will take over when you can't do it anymore, is really, really valuable. And also be an ally, obviously. Be forgiving. I feel like I'm going through like a really quick bullet point list of lessons, and sorry. It all comes down to the same thing, really. I guess for this, I'll give you a real life example, which was when I chose to speak to the media. So the background of this, I guess, is that I got I won my legal case in October, and I got the right to speak out. I got the right to speak out about everything that happened to me, everything that the way the university handled it, which is very, very rare. Like I said, normally you have to sign a waiver. I tried very hard to get this kind of news out so that other people could do the same thing within that university, so we could break the silence. And it was very, 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 very tricky. And then I broke all my own rules, and I got angry, and I tweeted. I got sick of it, and I just copied and pasted the front page of my settlement agreement and just put it on Twitter, which actually achieved a huge amount in a very small window of time, actually. So I don't regret it. But one of my major allies, one of the my best people that had supported me through the whole process, was utterly destroyed by this action. They were really, really devastated that I'd done this, because they did not feel that drawing media attention in that way on social media was a helpful action. And that, out of everything else, all of the trolls, all of the stress of having it actually out in the public sphere for the first time, that one person who I really valued saying, "You've done the wrong thing, you've hurt me," that was the hardest thing to take. And so this is one of my most important lessons, I guess, and it's to be forgiving, even if forgiveness isn't needed. So I haven't quite phrased that right. She didn't need my forgiveness. What was needed was for me to understand that people have different methods of doing things. And while I stand by what I did, because I tried a lot of other different things, people have different experiences. And I would say to not waste your time judging somebody else's other action that you might not have taken, because you're all trying to achieve the same thing. You're all trying to achieve change. You just have to accept that even your allies will have different ideas of action. Doesn't mean they're not an ally. This is an important one. Love the small victories. So, again, like I said, I wanted to set out to solve sexual harassment in academia. Several years later, we're at the point where we've just convened a first meeting with the Universities UK to stop staff to sexual harassment. So at the time, I might have said, well, for God, how has it taken 3 years to do that, 4 years to do that? Actually, that's a monumental victory when you consider how the inertia of the sector in order to change. So you might be disappointed with how incremental change is, but try not to be, because people have been trying to change things for hundreds, thousands of years, actually. I regularly get people who were kind of my age in the 70s say, "Oh, we tried that in the 70s. It's not changed. What's the point?" So don't forget that you are achieving something. And eat cake, celebrate. Final lesson: know when to walk away. I've said before, it is a relay race. It's not a marathon, this kind of reform. Tag your ally in, walk away, go on holiday, quit for 6 months and do some science, whatever it is you do. re-energize, you know, put your oxygen mask on first, as they say on the plane. You've not failed. And somebody very wise to me recently said that, you know, just because you aren't in pieces doesn't mean you're not doing enough. Just because you're not stressed beyond belief because you're getting your nails done for 3 hours or whatever, you know, or getting a pedicure, that doesn't mean you're not doing enough. You're looking after yourself, so keep doing that. And after all of that, sometimes, like I said, very occasionally, you just have to get extremely angry, but try and do it responsibly. Do it with friends around you, and go and eat cake afterwards. Thank you.